All right. Hello and welcome to episode number 2 of our Lunch and Learn sessions with Safe Kids Central California. I'm Dr. Hailey Nelson. I'm a complex care pediatrician at Valley Children's Hospital. I'm also a mother of 3 beautiful children. And if you ask my kids, I worry a lot, which is part of why I'm doing this. So mommy worries because she knows how kids can get hurt. And the whole point of these sessions is to talk about how we can keep our kids safe, and we want kids to be happy and healthy and keep them out of the hospital. So today we have a special guest with us. We have Serena from Poison Control, and we're going to be talking about ways that you can kind of childproof at home, and learning more just about accidental poisonings and things, tips and tricks. So there's definitely some of the things that you may know, and then there's some things that you might not know about poison control. So I'm really excited to have Serena here. So welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Something just to spread is that next week is National Poison Prevention Week, which is a great reason why I'm here is to kind of promote next week. So I'm excited to be here.
Okay. All right. So starting off for families who are tuning in live today and those who might watch it later, because it'll be recorded. So can you tell us just how do we reach poison control? So that's always the first thing of where do we find you and how do we get there?
Right. Yeah, so we're a 1-800 number. It's toll free. It's 1-800-222-1222. And this number will get you to your local poison center, whether you are in California, you're on the East Coast, anywhere in the United States, you call this number. We're open 24 hours a day, and you'll get to speak with somebody. We would recommend plugging this number into your phone, so your cell phone, so in case an emergency happens, you have it there versus kind of Googling or scrambling around for it. But it's pretty easy to remember, just 1-800-222-1222.
So lots of 2s in that number, but we're going to program it in so it's there when an emergency happens. Okay. And I actually found out, so you guys are located here on campus. So we actually have offices close by each other, and I didn't know that before this. So it's pretty cool. What's the encatchment area? So for the Central Valley, what is your area that you cover?
We are actually the entire state poison center. We just happen to have a division here in Central Valley, and we're at Children's. But we cover the whole entire state of California. So you can speak if you are in LA, you could call and actually get someone right here in this office, even if you're up north and like Napa or San Francisco. It still routes to the nearest, not nearest, but routes to any of the divisions that we have.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're definitely lucky to have you here with us. I'm so grateful that you can be sharing some tips and and that we're right by each other. So what are some things that you want parents to know? So what are some common things that parents need to know about poisons?
Right. So besides calling our number in case of any poisoning emergencies, we recommend kind of poison proofing your house. So if you have little ones who are exploring their environment, you know that they are touching everything, they're tasting everything, they're playing and smelling, and that's how they explore. So what we recommend is kind of the poison proof your house. I actually have some demonstrations here. So you can buy locks for your cabinets to help lock up your medicines, help lock up your chemicals. So this is kind of an easy one where you have to pinch both sides and then the lock opens and you can open up your cabinet, get your medicines out if you need to. They come in all different varieties. So this goes on 2 cabinets. This just goes on 1 and it kind of turns. And those can be found at your local hardware store. Things that we do recommend is keeping poisons, keeping chemicals, keeping medicines up and away out of view so that your kids cannot see them. Don't ever call medications candy. So a lot of kids who take vitamins or who take Tylenol or need Tylenol or acetaminophen, they will, if a parent calls it candy, then the kid is going to associate that as candy and then want to keep eating it. So it's better to label it as a medication that you take it only when you need it and only when mom and dad are around or grandparents or whoever your adult is that will administer it to you or give it to you. So those are two great things: is poison-proof your house with locks, keep your medicines, chemicals up and away, out of sight. Don't call medicines candy. And then lastly, something that happens even for adults, not necessarily just children, is keeping your original chemicals in their proper container. So not moving it to a different container that doesn't have a label. We get a lot of calls where chemicals are placed in drink bottles. So you're at work, you like this chemical, you put it in a drink bottle and you bring it home. And then that drink bottle is nice and blue, and maybe it's an energy drink or a sports drink, and it's left out on the table. And some unknowing member of your household comes by and takes a drink, and then they've just poisoned themselves. So always keep your chemicals, your cleaners, your products in the original container, and never put anything like that in a food container where it could be mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, so many great tips right there.
I know, so many.
kind of breaking that down, I have so many things,
Sure.
right? So that toddler proofing and the poison prevention piece, and really thinking about since I'm a pediatrician, I think about this all the time, that for kids, 1 dose of grandma's medicine, which is an appropriate dose for grandma, can be very detrimental to your child. And so that's where it's so important that these medicines are up and away, and that kids know that you have to get medicine from an adult, so that we're not calling it candy. And I think one of the things that helps us as parents is that medicine tastes good. So picking what flavor of Tylenol or ibuprofen that they want to have when they have a fever, and being like, oh, here's the bubblegum one, trying to make them feel better. But then, because it does taste good, that if they're able to get to it and take more than they should, that can quickly cause problems. So really being able to have it up and away, and kind of have that messaging. And then thinking too about the other things in your home that actually can be dangerous. So and initially, with talking to you, I was like, oh, poison control. Yep, if my kids got into extra medicine. But then, oh yeah, the cleaners and all of the other things. So there's stuff in your house that you might not think of as harmful that actually can be harmful for kids. Do you have some kind of things? You mentioned a few of them about like the putting in the bottles, that blue things, but stuff that parents might not have at the top of their mind that actually they should be watching out for?
Yeah, so the number one things that kids get into is actually personal care products or cosmetics. So things that you have in your shower, on your bathroom vanity, so makeup, lotions, in the diaper bag, diaper rash cream, even medications that you want to take with you, like maybe gas drops, all these things that you don't think are necessarily poisonous, or that your kid is going to get into because you use it all the time. They do. So like I said, number one, most product that kids get into is those lotions, those shampoos and conditioners and makeups. That's number one. Number two is just those cleaning products. So your bleach, your floor cleaner, your window cleaner, all those things that you maybe keep underneath a sink or in a cabinet in the bathroom that you don't really go to until you're using it. Kids are going to explore that. And then the third thing that they get into is medication. So Dr. Nelson did mention, if grandma and grandpa coming over and one of those pills being dangerous and potentially landing a child in the hospital. Something to think about is when you have relatives come and visit, or even just out of town visitors, they're going to bring their own medications, and they're probably in their suitcase. And with any kid who is curious, they're going to be rummaging in that suitcase and potentially getting medicine. So when you have visitors, explaining that, your toddler or your child is curious, and that they should also keep their medicines up and away, so that an accident doesn't happen. When you have done all you can do to poison-proof your house, you also have to account for those that come in and visit as well.
Yeah, those toddlers, they're curious. They're just going to get into things. So thinking one step ahead sometimes as a parent, that just because they haven't figured out how to get into it today, it doesn't mean that they might not tomorrow. And so trying to stay ahead for some of those things. So great tips. And then with poison control. So there's the things inside your house, but we can also call you for stuff that happens outside. So as it's getting warm and we're hiking and out in nature, apparently snake bites, that's a call that you get too.
We do. We get any sort of envenomation. So snake bites, bee stings, ant bites, someone ate a caterpillar, so a kid ate a caterpillar. We get all kinds of calls dealing with those critters and the creepy crawlies. So anytime when you're out hiking and you even poison ivy or poison oak, we deal with those sorts of calls as well. If you need to know what to do, give us a call. We can walk you through first aid, at home first aid. We can let you know when you have to go to the emergency room and how fast you need to get there if you need to get there.
Okay. Oh, I wasn't even thinking about worrying that my kids are going to eat a caterpillar someday, but apparently it happens. And we shouldn't be surprised. Like, kids do all sorts of funny things, which is why we're doing these sessions, because we want to help families know that the number with all the twos in it that they're going to program into their phone, so that when that happens, that you already have an action plan in place of like, hey, you have your friendly poison control, and you call them and they calmly talk you through. Because as a parent, you just start freaking out. And so knowing that, and I've called poison control before, so I know you guys are quite lovely on the phone, and then you just talk me through what I need to know. So very helpful.
Right. We do. We get calls where parents are frantically trying to get their kids in the car and to the emergency room. And a lot of times we're able to say, you know what, take a deep breath, let's stop and think this through. And the majority of kids end up staying at home. So that's the good news about when kids are exploring and getting into things, is that there are very few things that we would send into the emergency room. But when they do get into those things, they absolutely need to go and pretty fast. So.
And if you're not an English speaker, so I know you actually have translation services available. So how many different languages? If we have someone who needs help that's not speaking English, who can you help?
Yeah, so we have over 100 languages.
Wow.
If you just call our 1-800 number, the 1-800-222-1222, you'll get to one of our staff, and then they can, within 1 to 2 minutes, put on an interpreter, and we can help you with whatever language that you are comfortable with.
Excellent. 100 languages. That's impressive. So good. And then in terms of hours, so if it's evening, if it's night, like what are the times that you can call poison control?
All the time. We are open all the time. 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Holidays, we do not sleep. There's always somebody here. And you will talk to a real person. So when you call, you might get a phone tree that kind of directs you on what number to push. That being said, you end up always speaking with somebody. So I think that's the nice thing, is that you're not talking to a robot. You're actually going to talk to somebody who will listen to what you have to say and try and figure out what the problem is and how serious that problem is.
That's awesome. Well, thank you to everyone that works those nights and holidays and odd times to be able to help families out when they call in need. And if anyone who's tuned in live right now, if you have questions, feel free to message them to us. We'd be happy to ask Serena anything that you want to know at home for how to keep your family safe. But it doesn't look like we have any questions yet. Serena, as we're wrapping up here, anything else in terms of your list of things you wanted to make sure that we covered today?
Yeah, so I wanted to mention that for our staff, give you a background of what our staff education is. So the majority of us are actually clinical pharmacists. So when you call, you are most likely going to speak with a clinical pharmacist. We do have medical toxicologists who are board certified, physicians in toxicology who are also on standby in case we need to reach out to them. We have other staff. We have a registered nurse. We also have some other medical professionals. So we have a lot of knowledge. We're not just hired to read off a script. So we actually do have a lot of medical knowledge to help you with whatever poisoning problem that you come across.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It looks like we have our closing slides up on the screen. So just some of the tips that we talked about for never referring to medication as candy. So that's a big one. Just making sure that our children are educated that medication is only as prescribed and as given to you by an adult so that they learn and don't try to help themselves into things that they shouldn't. Avoid taking your medications in front of small children because they might see it and think that you're then not giving them something. And we know I have a toddler, so I totally get it that they get jealous. And so if you are able to take your medications away from them, that can be an easier situation than creating that curiosity in the first point. We're going to keep medications, our cleaning products, all those things up out of sight. So we really want to make sure that if there is something that they could get into that they shouldn't get into, that we're going to remove that temptation. So either by any of those cabinet locks that you showed us, which a lot of them are so great and easy to use to be able to kind of lock things up, or then removing them, keeping things in our original containers. We talked about that. So don't put things that aren't food in a food container. Seems common sense, but sometimes when you're just looking for something and there's an old Tupperware, it's easy to do, but it can be confusing and that it's not in the original packaging. So when you are giving medicine, make sure you read the label. So concentrations of meds can be different, and we want to make sure that, especially when you're giving children medication, that you're not giving the adult dose by accident. So really be watchful there, not mixing chemicals. So all good topics and tips. Lots that we covered in a short amount of time. So feel free to message us if you would like to know more. Please follow us on Safe Kids Central California. So liking this series and being able to let us know what you want to hear about. So our next session is going to be on railroad safety. So we'll be back here in 2 more weeks on March 31st at 1 o'clock. So we're keeping with that noon hour. But in the meantime, anything that you want to know safety-wise, Christina Pasma, who is our excellent trauma nurse, Safe Kids, everything. I mean, she's really amazing. So she's always available. Her email address is there, and then just messaging through our Facebook group will get you the answers. So thank you so much for joining us, and stay safe and be well.
Yep. Thank you.